Today, on the release day of this product, I am going to talk about Scythe, the Wind Gambit. This is the second expansion to Scythe, and it was designed by me and Kai Stark. And really, I should say the opposite order. It's designed by Kai Stark and myself, because Kai came up with the idea of having these big airships in the game sailing around as a new unit type in Scythe that you can move around. Every player starts with one of these on their home base, and you can start moving it around right away if you want. The airships fly over the land, so they don't care about rivers or lakes or any other terrain. They can go wherever they want, and they can even occupy the same territory because the airships don't actually fight, with one exception. There's one ability where they can fight, but for the most part, they just fly around and look at stuff and do stuff and interact in unique ways with the board. And there's another module that I'll talk about in a minute. But anyway, I'm saying this all because I am part of the design team for Scythe. And so obviously, like all of my videos, this isn't a review. I'm just talking about some things I like about this expansion. And so overall, my favorite element of this game, my favorite mechanism, is that the airships themselves, you can kind of see what they look like here. See that big rectangular area? The airships actually physically carry things. So this was an idea that Kai had from early on, that the airships could carry workers or they could carry resources, or maybe a combination of the two. And as we started to develop this idea, we thought, wouldn't it be cool if we actually made the airships big enough that they could physically hold those things? So that you have this airship flying across the board and there are workers standing on the airship itself. It's not just an abstracted thing where you have workers on a tile off to the side or you have workers on the stand. They are on the airship itself. I love that mechanism, and it was really fun to design around because it kind of meant two things. Having airships carry workers, for example, means that you can pick up workers with your airship and move them out of your starting area right at the beginning of the game. You're not constrained by your starting area anymore. You can have those workers go and produce resources that you couldn't normally produce if you were, say, Polania, or every faction has resources they're limited to. Or you can have those workers go out there and deploy a mech or construct a building. That they have a lot of flexibility as to what those workers can do once they drop them off. The other thing that I thought was really cool about this are the resources. The resources were a bit more of a challenge because you don't usually move resources around other than just to control them. And so because these airships are carrying around the resources, the slight benefit is that they are kind of protecting them from other players. Other players can't take those resources. But the other thing is that the design challenge or the solution we came up with was that the resources that you have on those airships interact with the ability corresponding with the cards. So there are these airship cards. There are aggressive and passive airship cards, and of all the aggressive cards, it either shows that you can carry resources or that you can carry workers. And so all the ones that carry resources have an ability corresponding to those resources. Like maybe you can use them during combat for something, or there are various ways to use them. So that was really cool to design around. Today, before I wrap up, I kind of wanted to mention my favorite of each of the abilities in the game. So, and let me focus on the resolution tiles first, because I talked a lot about airships so far. There's a whole other element to this expansion, which are these different ways that the game can end. So you choose one of these at the beginning of the game. It applies to all players, applies to that session of the game. And usually it's a rule that corresponds to some things that happen during the game that relate to how the game ends. So the game doesn't end anymore when you use these based on someone placing their 6th star. There's always an alternate or something that completely replaces that. And one that I'm going to mention is backup plan. I'll hold it up there in case you can pause and read it. But basically what it says is that you end the game as normal with this one. It says the first player to place their 6th star on the triumph track completes their turn, and then the game ends. That's not quite normal. Usually the game ends immediately. In this case, you complete your turn. But here's the catch, and the reason this is my favorite is that I have played Scythe several times where I'm the one to triumphantly place my 6th star, fairly confident that I have the win, and then I discover through endgame scoring, through the drama of the endgame scoring, that I didn't win. I hold no grudges. It's created these memorable moments of these times where a friend pulled out a victory even though I ended the game, and I have fun with that. What backup plan does is it says you end the game, You count up final scoring, but you keep your final scoring coins separate from the coins you had during the game. And if you trigger the end of the game and you didn't win, you get to play one more round. So it says if you didn't win, all players must discard their final scoring coins. So you push them away, you get rid of them because you're going to do that again. And you each take one more turn with you, the player who triggered the end of the game, going last. You get the final word again. So while it gives all the other players another turn, it gives you one more chance to pull out that victory even though you ended the game. I really, really like that. My favorite airship abilities, so they're passive and aggressive airship abilities. My favorite aggressive airship ability is Distract. Distract says you can't lose popularity for interactions with opponents that happen on your airship's territory. I just love the idea and the theme of having your giant airship float around, kind of following you around on the board, waiting for your opponent to have a few workers on a territory that you want, and you just move your airship onto it, bump those workers back to their home base, and you don't lose any popularity for it. I love the feeling of this tile. Yeah, I really like that one. And then my last one, passive, the passive ability. So and as you can see, these are thick tiles. These lay on the board. During the game, you have one aggressive and one passive ability for all players. Everyone uses the same pairing of abilities for their airship. My favorite passive ability is Hero. When your airship ends its movement on a village, you may pay one objective card to gain one objective card and one popularity. The reason I really like this is that one of the most common questions I've gotten about Scythe is why is there a space on the board for objective cards? Because you never interact with that deck of objective cards. When you fulfill an objective in Scythe, unless you're Saxony, you fulfill your objective and then you discard the other one and you never do anything else with them. You never draw objectives. And so I've been trying, I put it on the board because I figured someday I would come up with an idea that would have players interact with that deck. And so I wanted players to have a place on the board where they could put the deck. And so I've been trying to figure out how to do that, and I found it much more difficult than I thought to kind of balance that mechanism of when to get an extra objective card, when to discard and draw, when to look at the cards, things like that. And so we finally came up with this ability, Hero, where if you, say, have an objective card that you don't like, you can move your airship ability onto a village, discard that card, and then gain another card and a popularity. So it's just a very small interaction with that deck, but it's satisfying to me that we finally figured out a way to do that. So yeah, these are my favorite elements of the Wind Gambit, and my favorite overall element being that the airships can carry stuff, can carry workers or resources. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments about other games that have components that physically carry other components, and or your favorite mechanism inside the Wind Gambit. Thanks.